Franz Kafka was born into a small family who lived in a small village of Handwritten. He and his kin mostly kept to themselves and lived peacefully amongst the hidden forests of Volraya. Though they were few in numbers, the Handwritten were always seen as beastkin and were close-knit with their kind. Franz's village was no different. Though they did not serve any god, the people of his village were happy and seemingly free of the troubles that troubled the world around them. One day, their small world would be invaded by the forces of the Elkai Dominion, who sought to capture and enslave the Handwritten. They have been attempting to do for some time now, due to their apparent lack of faith in any god. This left the kin of the canine like people susceptible to the influences of the domineering Elkai race, who would seek to take advantage of this in favor of more power over the kin of Ain. Franz was just a young boy when he was suddenly wrenched from his family and forced to wear a muzzle over his face before being thrown into a cage with the other youngkin of his village. He had to watch his parents and other young siblings be hauled away in similar cages by these horned invaders, with him crying and screaming out to them out of confusion and fear. Franz never learned what became of his family the following day as he lay alone and afraid, curled in his dark cell and thinking nothing but his family. He was more scared for them than he was for himself. He was young, but even then, he was strong. He quickly realized that he was in some sort of danger and that he would have to steel his nerves if he was going to think through it all. He never moved from his prone position, even as the door of his cell opened and the sound of heels clicking against the cold metal flooring resounded around the small room. The clicking had stopped just short behind his back and a voice spoke to him. It was a female's voice. Though the tone was soft and low, Franz could feel that something was off about it. She attempted to rouse him from his lame state, but Franz did not move. It took the sudden cold and stern turn of the female's voice to make him look over his shoulder to her with a flinch. She was a tall female, black and white Avari. She held a high-raised face that was as stiff as her pale dark blue uniform and held eyes in her tiny head as hard as her heeled steps. "Look at me when I am talking to you, Akinin." She would spit at him with words laden with venom. Though Franz had told himself to be strong through this endeavor, this female Avari struck something deep inside him that made him shiver and compelled to listen to her, as if a spell was cast over him immediately. He could not tear his eyes from her, even if he wanted to. He'd gulp and turned his whole body around and hugged his knees as she continued to talk. "That's better." The female Avari stepped forward to Franz and he felt himself cowering away from her. She came close enough so she'd be eye level with him as she knelt before him, her long legs easily bending like praying mantis arms, knees pointed high. "Do you remember what happened the day before?" she asked of him, her tone quizzical but still held the same cold tone. The tall Avari leaned her head to the side, and Franz felt compelled once again to obey. He'd swallow a moniker of the newly instilled fear down long enough to answer, but without his voice. He'd nod his head slowly, his eyes slowly drifting from the tall female as he recollected the images of his parents struggling against the Elkai Dominion's enforcers and his young siblings being tossed into cages like meager prey. The same kind of prey his father would hunt and capture to demonstrate to him on how to hunt and trap. How could he forget such a terrifying crime scene of these strangers doing such a thing to his family? What bad thing did they do for this to happen to them? "Good," the tall Avari female briskly said, breaking Franz's thoughts and forcing him to snap his attention onto her again. "You will do best to remember, as you will never see your family again." The female enforcer stood up tall, her arms behind her back as she walked away from the stunned Franz, leaving him alone with the weight of her words to sink in. What did she mean? What happened to his family? The kin of his village. Tears that Franz fought so hard to fight back welled up in his eyes and streamed down his face. Her heels slowly clicked towards the heavy metal bolted door. He had hoped that she would walk through it and finally leave him alone. However, the hells stopped just short in front of the door and turned in a single motion. "You belong to the Elkai Dominion. We're your family now. Everything you have ever known up until this point shall be forgotten. You have no parents, you have no siblings, you have no village, you have no friends, you have no one but the Elkai Dominion. You will live with us, and you will work for us. Do as we say, and you may live long enough to see your 10th birth of age. The Elkai officer looked over Franz with a lidded look of pity for him as she rubbed her fingers into the palm of her slender hand. She gave him a moment longer to allow his fate to further cement itself into his psyche. Franz blinked at the Wompkin, his insides turned cold. He stared at her icy blue hues, but was looking past them. He knew the concept of death. He knew the act of killing. He's seen his father do it many times while hunting. He understood the act of taking a life and knew what it was the female Avari was telling him. That he would no longer be seeing his family again, for they were dead, killed by these monsters who he had no idea who or what they were. All he was left with was the notion that they were killers and would not hesitate to do the same to him if he did not cooperate with them. Understanding that much, Franz nodded his head and fell his head to the floor. The salt of his tears stinging his eyes and blinding his vision in a shimmering sight. He sniffed once and the tears fell from his eyes and speckled the metal floor. All he could do was watch the forming little spots appear on the floor with the tears of his loss of life. Before he could grieve any longer, he was once again torn from his mourn at the sound of the female Avari snapping her fingers to gain his attention. Come now, Akanin, we can't have you sniffling yourself into a useless mess. We have much work for you to do, and you're no good to us in such a state, so I advise you get yourself together and settle in your new life. She paused in her statement as she waited for Franz to do something before she'd snap at him sternly. Stand up, Akanin! Franz was quickly brought up to his feet, stumbling a bit as he'd straightened up to the tone of her voice. His had stopped sniffing, but the tears remained a threat to his survival. His body shook with the struggle to keep himself from jumping from the hiccups of sorrow. The Avari female seemed to sigh and shake her head, adopting a more softened speech as she beckoned him over with a come hither of her tandem fingers. Come here, little one. Franz was hesitant to come to the killer female Avari, who only looked at him with her fingers still calling him over. There was something in her steely eyes as she stared into him which overwhelmed Franz's natural instincts to keep away from danger, but to walk towards it instead. As he came close to her, the Avari officer pulled Franz into a hug. She held him with both arms crossed behind his back and looked down at him. Franz's arms remained plank at his side, but his sobbing had completely stopped. There now, little one, that's better. There is no need to cry over such losses. What is done is done. You belong to use now. There is no mistake in that, and there is nothing that will change that. You understand, yes? Franz silently nodded his head, his face hidden within her flat abdomen. There was a certain smell about the female that he couldn't quite understand himself. It was a smell unlike any other, but he was sure that he didn't like it. It smelled rank, a deep stench that made his stomach uneasy with sickness. He was mercifully pulled away before his body would react the same, his chin urged to look up at this female killer. She smiled down at him, a smile that unnerved Franz and caused him to shiver again, but was unable to completely pull away. The eyes of the Avari female prevented him from moving. With the same wide, crooked smile, she'd exclaim his name to him. Your name is no longer Franklin. You are now Franz Sunderfall. Franz shivered once again, straight to his core, and it took everything inside of his young, small body to keep him from crumbling. He swallowed once again and nodded. The black and white-coloured Avari Wompkin looked pleased. Her expression brightened, and her tone took on a sweeter twist. Good. Now come, Franz. Let's get you out of this dingy cell and into your new clothes. She'd say this as she'd usher him with her out of the metal cage he died in, walking with the killer into his new life.